Hey there, this is Dr. Justin Marchegiani, and today's talk is going to be on cutting calories and weight loss. We're going to talk about really what cutting calories is actually doing to your body and to your hormones, and if we're actually causing damage in the long run. So again, what is a calorie? Well, a calorie is nothing more than a measurement of heat. So let's break that down here. So here's your typical beaker. In the beaker, we're going to have 1 gram of fluid, water, and that 1 gram of water, the amount of energy it takes to heat that 1 gram of water up 1 degree Celsius equals a calorie. So as you can see, a calorie is nothing more than a unit of energy or a unit of heat. Now typically what they would do is they would put food into various bomb calorimeters and they'd see how much energy or heat it would take to burn it up, and they would base that measurement and convert it to a calorie. The problem is our body doesn't quite act like a bomb calorimeter, meaning we have enzymes and hormones and all kinds of different things that affect our metabolism. So for instance, thyroid hormone has a major effect on our metabolism. Adrenaline, right? Epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol, stress hormones, inflammation, these all have massive effects on our metabolism. Also toxicity as well. So this is really important. So let's get a little bit deeper into other things that affect our metabolism. So let's talk about the calorie and hormone connection. So first off, a calorie can be broken down into 3 major macronutrients. That's where all food can be broken down into. We have carbohydrate, okay? We have protein, and we have fat. So part of where the low-fat craze actually came from, when we look at 1 gram of each of these and how many calories are in each, what we find is fat has about 8 calories, protein has about 4, and carbs have about 4. So as you can see, if we just look at it based on calories, we would say, okay, well, fat's obviously the bad guy if we're in this low-calorie model because we can eat less of it and still have more calories, right? So when we're eating carbohydrate, let's look what's happening. Now, depending on the types of carbohydrate, for this analogy, we're going to keep the carbohydrates down to 3 simple categories. We're going to do non-starchy carbohydrate. Non-starchy carbohydrate are like your vegetables. Non-starchy. Now, with non-starchy carbohydrate, we're not going to have much of a hormonal response. We're not going to have much of a fat-storing hormonal response. So I'm going to just leave this as neutral. Neutral. We also have high starch carbohydrate. That type of carbohydrate breaks down to sugar. So this could be potatoes, this could be bananas, this could be even sweet potatoes. Again, the glycemic index on there tends to vary depending on what food we're talking about. White potatoes, higher, sweet potatoes, lower. But let's just go with the higher starch food. Now, that's going to have a positive effect on fat storing. Why? Because it's actually increasing insulin. And insulin's a major fat storage hormone, where here, our insulin effect is negligible. There's no real insulin effect on the non-starchy carbohydrates. And then we actually have our low glycemic fruit. This could be like our berries. This could be grapefruit, green apples, lemon, lime, things like that. Those are going to be our low glycemic fruit. Those would kind of have like a middle of the road effect on insulin, like not too bad. So I'll make the arrow like a little bit more dotted so it looks a little different. All right, so not too bad when it comes to insulin. Not too bad. So you can see the higher starchy foods may increase insulin more. Obviously, all the refined foods, refined sugars, added sugars, even artificial sweeteners can have an effect on insulin, but those are the foods that are going to be spiking up insulin, and insulin is driving the fat calories into the fat cell. So that's kind of the big thing here, is we want to look at what the hormones are actually doing. Not to mention when we have protein, what's actually happening with protein, we are stimulating glucagon. We are going to be stimulating thyroid hormone. And not to mention, we're going to be stimulating appetite suppressants like peptide YY peptide YY, adiponectin, right? Also, we have leptin, right? With fat, similar thing, we have CCK. These are all things that actually tell our brain we're full. Now, we don't quite get the feedback loop over here. Here we have a nice feedback loop. We have our brain here, and then we have our brain going down to our intestinal tract, right? And this actually feeds back up saying we're full. So this is really important because here we have a feedback loop that's not present. Here we have a feedback loop that actually tells us we're full. And not to mention, the protein and the fat aren't stimulating the insulin, right? The carbohydrate, especially the high glycemic carbohydrate, whether it's the high fruit or the high starch, that's going to stimulate more insulin. So if you're eating lower calorie but you're having a lot of high insulin foods, well, guess what? You're still going to gain weight. Now, when we look at low calorie and adrenal and thyroid function, low calorie in nature, right? We have to look at how we've evolved. Low calorie equals famine equals stress. So what the body does in a time of stress is it's shunting more calories. Calories go to fat in a time of stress. Now, why does calories go to fat in a time of stress? Well, because we can convert more energy into fat, right? Fat can hold 8 calories, 8 units of energy per gram versus carbohydrates and protein. So when the body's stressed, it makes sense with this whole stressed out philosophy happening here, because if we're putting our body in low calories, we're telling our body famine. Famine equals stress. Stress then causes calories to convert more to fat, because the body doesn't want you to produce abundant amount of energy from your adrenals and your thyroid in your body. It wants to convert it more to fat so we have a storage. So the pantry is full in case we have an emergency, because we're already telling our body this is happening. Now, really important, what's actually happening here is we are down-regulating thyroid. We are decreasing thyroid. We are decreasing thyroid hormone when that happens. We're actually making more reverse T3, RT3. RT3 actually fills in the receptor sites where the thyroid hormone would go. So imagine this being a receptor site, and thyroid hormone would bind into the receptor site. Reverse T3 actually blocks the receptor site, so it'd be like me doing this, and then when that receptor comes in, it can't bind in with the thyroid hormone. That's what reverse T3 is doing. So we're increasing more reverse T3, and then we're also causing more stress. So that stress could be from the adrenal glands. It could be an increased amount of cortisol. And it could be an increased amount of adrenaline. And what's happening here is when we have increased cortisol and adrenaline, it is going and scavenging the body for unnecessary calories. Meaning, if we have calories stored in our protein or our muscle, well, we don't really need that because we have to survive. So our body will start catabolizing muscle and breaking it down into amino acids. And those amino acids go into gluconeogenesis and get converted to glucose, so we can use that. So our body's going to be able to put on less lean muscle, less lean tissue, and also high amounts of cortisol are going to cause us to actually put on more fat as well. So the high cortisol will catabolize the muscle and also add more fat to the body, so we have extra stored energy. So when we look at cutting calories, not a good thing. What it's doing, it's turning down the thyroid. It's increasing reverse T3 as well, so it's blocking the thyroid hormone from having a metabolic effect. It's increasing cortisol and adrenaline so we can store more fat and catabolize muscle into calories as well. And your energy goes down. Why do you get tired? Well, why do you want to sit there and have an abundant amount of energy when fuel is scarce? So our body down-regulates energy so we conserve it. We put on fat and we have less energy, and essentially we're not going to feel as good because our mood is predicated upon how much energy we have. But more energy, better mood, relatively speaking. So cutting calories is not a good idea. Now, in the short run, can you lose a lot of calories can you lose a lot of weight and change your body comp for the better early on by cutting calories? Yes. The problem is long-term, you're going to have devastating side effects to it. People say, well, look at, the concentration camp victims of the 40s, right? They were all looked very emaciated when they were discovered. But again, they didn't have a fridge to choose food from. So willpower was taken out of their equation because they were essentially slaves. But we aren't in that situation. We have fridges and abundance all around us of food. So willpower, once that's taken out, we're going to start eating the foods that are going to make us fat again. And when we start increasing the calories again, well, guess what? Cortisol's up, adrenaline's up, thyroid's down, so our body's ability to burn those calories is lower. So when we increase the calories again, it's going more towards fat because our body's still in that fat storing state versus the fat burning state. So really important, we want to keep and eat the right foods that are going to shift our appetite, the high quality protein and fat, and then choose the carbohydrates that are going to have the least effect on lowering our metabolism. Again, we want to differentiate short-term goals between long-term goals. Cutting calories to achieve long-term goals is a terrible idea. Short-term goal, maybe a wedding, maybe a bodybuilding competition, yeah, of course it can work. But we want to give you sustainable long-term solutions. And I also want you to understand what's happening inside the body and why you can lose weight in the short run, but in the long run it's devastating. So again, this is Dr. Justin signing off here. Check below the video for more of my video series on how to get a hold of me. And subscribe below so you can get access to more videos coming your way. Thanks. Have a great day.